Thank you. All right, let me.
Does everybody know Valorie? I think you do, but if you don't, she's pretty fabulous, and she's a Dharma transmitted teacher. She's a crack sewing teacher. She's one of my favorite people, a mentor, a Dharma sister, and well, her Dharma talks will speak for themselves. So, thank you, Valerie, for coming.
Oh, thank you for that. That wonderful introduction. Thank you. So I want to thank Cynthia and Kirk and Steve for the invitation to be with you yet again this evening. So thank you very much. And to all of you for being here. Thank you. It's good to see all of you. Miss you all in person. Do. So tonight, what I'd like to do is take up one of the most problematic stories in Buddhism, the story of Prince Siddhartha abandoning his wife Yashodhara and their newborn son Rahula, sneaking off in the middle of the night to go chase enlightenment. And that's usually about what we've been told. And then, especially in this era of Me Too and the manosphere and you name it, the judgments roll in. Husband going off to do his own thing, deadbeat dad, da 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 da. And sadly, nowhere in the Zen literature are you going to find anything else other than the part of the story that I just told you. But in the Pali Canon and the Theravada literature and the Nikayas, and especially in the Jataka tales, there is not an alternate story, but there is a fuller story. So please get comfy. Close your eyes if you like, because I'm going to tell you a bedtime story pieced together from a bunch of non-Zen sources. So I didn't make any of this up. I just want to say that right at the beginning. About Siddhartha and Yasodhara. And what really happened that night and where it led. None of the sources contradict that the prince left his wife in the middle of the night. However, and it's a very big however, he left because she and he had agreed that he would. Siddhartha and Yasodhara had been together, according to the Jataka tales, for hundreds of previous lives, sometimes as spouses, but always as good friends, Kalyana Mitra, good friends on the path. They knew that this lifetime was going to be the last time for both of them, and that they were both approaching enlightenment. They were cousins. Supabuddha and Sudana were brothers. Interestingly, both Yasodhara and Shakyamuni, Siddhartha's mothers, died shortly after they were born. And at a meet and greet, or what do they call it these days, a meet cute, where the prince was going to meet some potential mates, Yasodhara insisted on going. And when she and Siddhartha saw each other, it's not that they knew, it's that they remembered. They remembered all those previous lives where they had been together. They knew this was the ultimate life for both of them, and that they had some things that they needed to do together. So they get married and they have a child, and then that night comes. And the prince is standing there looking at his sleeping wife and newborn son. And according to one of the texts that Reverend Steve is going to send around to you later, here's what goes through Siddhartha's mind. By the power of our past resolves, you and I are now prepared. You are paramount among women, my queen. No more will we walk together the samsaric round. I will come back as a Buddha. Wait for me. And she does. The prince doesn't say anything because he knows that if he wakes her, he'll stay. And that will undo the agreement that they have and perhaps waste this lifetime where they had both agreed that he would go first. Except he doesn't really, which I'll get to in a moment. That old text goes on to say, when it came time for Siddhartha to leave the palace in pursuit of enlightenment, he did not abandon a helpless wife and child, but went out to seek the end of suffering for her, for his son, and for all sentient beings. On the brink of enlightenment herself, Yashodhara understood this. And she wasn't the only one. The prince had help in his escape. Chana, his attendant, and even Kantaka, his horse, were in on the plot, and they too had been with Siddhartha and Yasodhara throughout previous lives. They show up in the Jataka tales again and again and again. If you want to launch this effort to find out more about Yasodhara and Siddhartha together, the Jataka, send it to the Jataka tales because they're all over the place in there. So Yasodhara understands and agrees to this plan. And yet she laments, as we all do, when a loved one leaves, even if we've been part of the decision and even if we agree with it. This happens today. Military spouses go on deployments. Children leave home. Loved ones go off for necessary and important pursuits. And either we're the ones that go or we're the ones that stay. And we both love them and we grieve. And if you ever needed any proof that Yasodhara both forgave him and still loved him, what does she do when he comes back? She's one of the first to join his order. She's the 13th bhikkhuni to join his order and becomes very skilled in a particular aspect as she becomes an arhat. This won't surprise you. Yashodhara becomes very skilled in knowing past eons. Why? Because she was there throughout a lot of it. And then, sort of in the ultimate, not only the ultimate forgiveness, but in the ultimate sort of I told you so to her father-in-law, King Suddhodana, who has been nagging her to get the inheritance for Rahula so he can become king. Rahula at this point is about 7. And so Yasodhara says to Rahula, sure, go ahead, go to your father and get your inheritance. And according to the Rahula Vada, which is the Buddha's teachings for his son, Rahula goes to his father and the Buddha ordains him on the spot, his real inheritance. So she knew what the real inheritance was. So Yasodhara fairly quickly becomes an arhat and spends decades with the Buddha and the Sangha, but she dies before him. And again, quoting one of those old sources in the Pali Canon, one night Yasodhara came to the Buddha and said, tonight I'm going to die. She came to thank him for showing her the path. She told the man who had once been her husband and had become her teacher, I am my own refuge. Then she preceded her husband into the deathless realm. This is important, and I'll come back to it. In Jataka Tales number 485, it is recorded that the Buddha said this on her deathbed. It is no marvel that now in my last existence, the lady should love me and should be faithful of heart and led by me alone. So also, even when born as an animal, she was faithful and mine alone. Not now only, but long ago as now, she was devoted and faithful of heart to me. So she dies, Yasodhara dies before the Buddha and enters nirvana and the formless. Remember, this is her last life. So she's transitioning to the formless realm. And what we need to remember is that because she died before he did, she does this before he does. She enters nirvana and becomes the formless and enters the Tushta heaven before he does. So she precedes him into all of this stuff that we think is kind of like the, the ultimate and the end and the nirvana. It's like she beats him there. Yasodhara gets there first. And then he predicts her as a future Buddha. And there is some indication in a few of the Nikayas that she is Maitreya, the next Buddha. Depending on whose calculation you follow, about 5.5 million years from now. We'll wait. Maitreya, from the root Maitri, or good friend. Also a cognate of the word metta, loving kindness. And she certainly was that. A Kalyana Mitra, a good friend on the path to the Buddha of our time, and maybe in our own Jataka tales, the Buddha of our future time.